In this video, I'm going to give you guys the logic I used to convince my friend who was number 1 Radiant to use Raw Accel in some of his ranked games, and the logic I used to convince my friend Rob, who was rank 17 Radiant, that Mouse Accel is so overpowered that it's a literal crutch for bad aim in TAC FPS games. I think that this is really important because Accel really does crutch bad aim to an extent, which could either amplify your aim training results or allow you to focus less on aim and more on your game sense. So in order to show you why Accel is so overpowered and how to use it in TAC FPS games, you first gotta understand that Mouse Accel is not gonna ruin your muscle memory in any way that affects your aim, and it's possible to intuitively understand where your crosshair will be based on a predictable Accel curve, just like a constant flat sensitivity. I'd consider accepting this to be the only prerequisite to this video, so if you don't already accept this, you can check out my video on the top right. It's the first video in my Mouse Accel series, or you can just Google up Mouse Accel and watch a video by someone else where they try it for a bit and have fine results. So there's really 3 simple steps to understanding how Mouse Accel works in TAC FPS games. First, we gotta understand the benefits of low and high sense. The simplest way to explain these sensitivities is to explain what they mean in terms of how you have to move your mouse. Now let's say these 2 targets pop up on screen. If you're on low sense, you look at how far you have to move your mouse. You have to move your mouse a really long distance to get between targets, but the space on your mouse pad that you have to move your mouse onto to be on target is also much bigger. You can visualize almost the targets as being on your mouse pad. They're bigger and further apart. Raising your sensitivity will make these targets feel closer and closer together, while also making them a lot smaller. The space between them is smaller, so you have less distance you have to move your mouse, but you have to be a lot more precise to hit the target. Depending on who you are and what your prior experience is, you may feel you're more able to hit the precise targets of high sense than you are able to traverse the long distances of low sense, or maybe it's vice versa. This can change from game to game, or person to person, day to day, month to month. It can really change a lot. Regardless of what you find is optimal for you, the long distance between targets on low sense is a disadvantage, and the precision required is a disadvantage for high sense. This can be proven by just playing Jumbo Tile Frenzy and 1 while 6 targets small. In Jumbo Tile Frenzy, the targets are bigger and closer, so you aim faster. So now imagine that the 2 targets on your mousepad were now as far apart as they are on high sense, but they have the same size as they do on low sense. This would be absolutely overpowered, right? Well, that's Mouse Accel. You aim fast between targets and slow when getting close naturally. Mouse Accel puts you on an optimal sense to do this at both points. Now, some people will lie and tell me they flick at the same speed the whole way through. People are forced to exist within the limits of the laws of physics. Accelerating your hand cannot be instant. If you were to instantly stop your mouse from whatever speed it was at when you get on target, then you would need to be able to apply an infinite amount of force onto your mouse with your hand. This would not be possible even if you were like Dwayne Johnson. Trying to do this would break your hand and your mouse before you could do it. So as you get close to the target, you will have some kind of deceleration period. Once you accept that, you just have to figure out how fast you move your mouse when you're decelerating, and then just structure your Mouse Accel curve around that. Just structure your Mouse Accel curve around the rates that you change your hand speed. Now you gotta understand, Accel is extremely personalized. As you improve, you'll likely need a new graph. Your current graph may be optimized perfectly for you today. It might not be ideal for you a month from now, and it might be basically throwing a year from now. That's fine. Allow your Accel settings to grow with you. A couple weeks ago when I was giving this whole sales pitch to Europe, I had him record his gameplay with an Accel graph on a flat sense with an overlay. Then I could play it back and see where he peaked and where his speed was during adjustments. For him at 800 DPI, he had roughly 40 counts per milliseconds as a peak, and very few people aim faster than Europe. Keep in mind, counts per millisecond is directly related to your DPI. 40 counts on 800 is 80 on 1600. For anyone who doesn't know, Europe is a Voltaic member and a static clicker who is currently a decent bit better than Bardos was when Bardos was at his peak. So to summarize step 1, what you want is your Accel to put you on a higher sense or sense range during periods where you're between targets, and a low sense when you're getting really close to the target and trying to adjust onto it, or you're already on it. However, you probably don't want to have Accel go too high, as this can become harder to predict and therefore inconsistent, but if you can handle it and like it, then use it. I don't know anyone who really goes above a 2x range in their Accel curve. But again, if you're comfortable on a curve, try other curves and like them less, then just use the curve you like the best. Now, my friend who was ranked 1 Radiant stopped with step 1 and he found that he struggled hitting strafing enemies. I told him that's why there's a step 2, which is optimizing your curve for strafing enemies. But to truly understand this step, you have to click the subscribe button. When you start to move your crosshair closer to a moving target, you can only slow down so much before the enemy will start to just move faster than your crosshair. You have to move at a certain speed to keep up with the enemy. But remember how the curve was made so that the distance between targets would feel really small because you were going faster than approaching a static target's pace? Well, if a dynamic enemy is moving and you need to move your mouse faster, then this could make it so that the enemy could fall into that region of high sense that's supposed to be reserved for being between targets. So there's a bunch of different ways to fix this. The easiest one is probably just to throw a small offset on your curve so that when you're adjusting onto a moving enemy, you'll be on a flat, low sensitivity. Also, if you use a really low acceleration rate, then this acceleration won't really be that painful for adjusting onto a moving enemy. Classic curves can make it so that you start out with a lower acceleration rate, and then your acceleration rate starts to pick up. If you feel like you don't start low enough or doesn't stay low enough for long enough, you can increase the power on the classic curve. I use a combination of offset and a classic curve so that my curve doesn't start really accelerating until about 9 counts per millisecond on 1000 dpi. But honestly, if your curve starts on a pretty low sense, then it really won't make that much of a difference if it accelerates kinda quickly, because you'll still hit the enemy before you're on that high of a sense. Now, I believe Xantari's curve looks something like this, and his base sense is only 50 centimeters per 360, so obviously you don't need to get around this. If you can work without step 2, then you can work without step 2. It's not the end of the world. Even when I don't use a curve that has the step 2 theory applied to it, it doesn't really hurt my aim that much at all. This is just something I've found to be helpful for me and other people. Now, I got a friend Rob who was ranked 17 Radiant, and because I've only gone through step 1 and 2 with him, he keeps telling me that Accel's really overpowered, but if you want good aim, you should avoid it and just actually work on your skills. To an extent, he has a point, but this is also because he doesn't understand step 3 yet. Basically, what you have to understand is that proper Accel does make aiming easier. Don't just run Accel because the guy in the video said run Accel. If it doesn't work for you, keep changing your curve till you find a curve, and if you really can't find a curve, then don't use Accel. But remember back to when I was talking about the different reasons to run low and high sense in game and optimizing your own sense for your own skills? This is meant to make aiming easier too. Aim in games is meant to be easy so that you can focus on your game sense, your decision making, and other things that I really don't understand about games because all I do is aim train. Aim trainers are where you use the challenging settings. And just like some people train on a low sense for speed practice and others might train on a high sense to practice precision, I'd recommend training without Accel and also with Accel. If you want to improve at the action of using Accel, maybe you're new to Accel, maybe you just want to keep your skills honed, then train with Accel on. If you're trying to improve at anything else, then train with a sense that makes that harder. Same thing as if you've never ran Accel. If you wanted to improve at how comfortable you felt on the sense in game, maybe it's a warm-up or you're trying out a brand new sense that's in a range you're not used to or something, then you train on that sense. If you want to improve a specific skill like your precision, then you might train on a higher sense or a lower sense to practice your speed or something, just like you always would. I know that Europe will even bounce between low flat sense and mouse Accel, and sometimes his world records are 1 or 2 runs after shutting off mouse Accel. He uses mouse Accel as a way to improve at his main sense. Just use it however you want. Whatever works for you works for you. Thanks for watching. If you want more aim guides, subscribe for those.